Hi, this is Utah Phillips, the golden voice of the great Southwest, and you're listening to Loafer's Glory, Hobo Jungle of the Mind. Radio, airwave, a pigeon with the message floats. Broadcast, a vast flyway where pigeons deliver notes to pools along the river. The fish rejoice. Cast after cast, the voice flies out. The line grows taut, curiosity, laughter, old recognition lured and caught. Cast after cast, the voice goes out, often reeling past into feeling. Well, here we are once again, Loafer's Glory, the Hobo Jungle of the Mind, from our community radio station, KVMR. Right at the onset, I'd like to thank the Haitian World Fund of the Tides Foundation for helping to make the show possible, and also a special thanks to Cosmo and the wonderful Black Fungus. I'm here at KVMR with Steve Baker, who does the engineering. We're, of course, listening to the Jimmy and Nancy Borsdorf Hawks and Eagles playing Loafer's Glory. KVMR is our community radio station. They've just done a wonderful job here covering the local elections, and we wound up, thankfully, with a much more liberal city council and much more liberal county board of supervisors. Of course, I'm always reminded of the old socialist Charlie Kelly down there in Torrey, Utah, said, well, a liberal will hang you, but from a lower limb. But at least now we'll be able to confront some of the problems of municipal poverty that we experience in our little hamlet of Nevada City. It manifests itself in odd ways. I live up by the cemetery there, and I noticed that they've started burying people on their stomachs with their fannies sticking up out of the ground because the city has a shortage of bicycle racks. There was a wonderful magazine that used to be put out by Malvina Reynolds, who wrote What Have They Done to the Rain and Little Boxes. She put out a little newsletter called Sporadic Times out of Berkeley. I have an unusual edition of that. Some time ago, some young fellows at a high school sexually assaulted a young woman there, and the judge, when they were taken to court, gave them just a kind of a mild slap on the wrist. That was Judge Archie Simonson. He said that it was the times, that it was too much permissive, the lax morality, and it was her fault because of the clothing that she was wearing. Judge Archie Simonson said, whether we like it or not, women are sex objects. And that's a quote from the newspaper. Malvina Reynolds heard about that, wrote a song on the spot, went into a studio with Steve Goodman, and made a 45 RPM record for that edition of Sporadic Times, sent it off to the people up there in Madison, Wisconsin, and then went up there, and that song got together a petition drive to throw the judge out. I have that 45, that copy of Sporadic Times. And when's the last time you played a 45? Let's listen to Malvina Reynolds singing The Judge Said.
Judge said, screw 'em, boys, you're only human. They brought it on themselves by being born a woman, like a mountain's there to climb and fruit's there to be eaten. Woman's there to rape, to be shoved around and beaten. The judge took his position, the judge he wouldn't budge, so he got out this petition and we're gonna screw the judge. Now if you beat a horse or dog or violate a bank, Simonson will haul you in and throw you in the clank. But violate a woman, your equal and your peer, the judge will slap you on the wrist and lay the blame on her. disposition, the judge, he wouldn't budge. So he got out this petition, and we're gonna screw the judge. To draw a true conclusion from what Simonson has said, woman has to live in fear and cover up her head. She has to dress in purdah and lock herself in cages. And this kinky judge in Madison is from the Middle Ages. The judge took his position, the judge, he wouldn't budge. So we got out this petition, and we're gonna dump the judge.
Malvina Reynolds, the judge said. You see, the power of a song, part of what the show is going to be about is what songs can do. That song had an enormous effect, a really, really sad, awful situation. Malvina was always there for that, by the way. She was one of those people who was able to make up songs on the spot, to order, to be able to write a song about a particular subject any time of any day and have it turn out consistently good. Let me take you to the Smithsonian Folklife Festival on the Mall in Washington, D.C. The enormous Folklife Festival. I was hosting one of the stages. We were honoring traditional singers from the Southern Mountains, from Kentucky, from Tennessee, from Virginia, people who knew the old ballads and had grown up with them, but also people who had been through terrific coal mine struggles to organize the National Mine Union and the NMU, the mine, well, you know, the other regular coal mine union. Well, this enormous audience was spread out in front of us on that stage. One of the women there was Sarah Ogan Gunning, who had gone through hell in the coal mine towns, losing a husband, brother underground, losing babies through malnutrition, through starvation. Well, this was the same time that David Peel was doing the first smoke-in up there at the Washington Monument. And there was a whole mob of people there at that smoke-in. And it was Free John Pun and Jack, John Sinclair, Rock Liberation, Rainbow People's, all of that. And after they had the smoke-in, the cops were all there. They were all mounted. That whole mob of smoking people, led by David Peel, started moving up the mall right toward our audience. And they were on their way to the National Capitol to throw syringes on the steps to demonstrate against the CIA complicity in drug smuggling. Well, there they were headed for our crowd. The cops were right behind our stage. The tear gas had already been thrown and was wafting over our stage. Ralph Rinzer, the director, said, "We've got to shut the stage down. What are we going to do?" I said, "Let's put Sarah Ogan Gunning on stage." One elderly woman, alone, walked up to that microphone, and she started to sing. And that smoke-in crowd melted into our crowd, and they sat down, and they listened. And this is the song she was singing.
Come all you coal miners, wherever you may be, and listen to a story that I'll relate to thee. My name is nothing extra, but the truth to you I'll tell. I am a coal miner's wife, I'm sure I wish you well. Coal mining is the most dangerous work in our land today, with plenty of dirty slaving work and very little pay. Coal miner, won't you wake up and open your eyes and see what the dirty capitalist system is doing to you and me? They take your very lifeblood, they take our children's lives, take fathers away from children and husbands away from wives. Oh, miner, won't you organize wherever you may be and make is a land of freedom for workers like you and me. Dear miner, they will slave you till you can't work no more. And what'll you get for your living but $1 in a company store? A tumble-down shack to live in, snow and rain pours in the top. You have to pay the company rent, your paying never stops. I am a coal miner's wife, I'm sure I wish you well. Let's sink this capitalist system in the darkest pits of hell.
Well, now you see why they all sat down. The woman stood up and flat spoke out the truth. Sarah Ogan Gunning introduced me to one of the most unusual human beings I've ever met in my life. Another coal miner from the southern mountains, Nimrod Workman. Well, he passed away when he was about 96. Joanna, my wife, and I visited him outside of Knoxville. We called to find out how to get there. And he said he would drive up to the top of the road to meet us so that we wouldn't get lost. And there he was. He was over 90, parked at the top of the hill, drove us back down. Him and his wife sang to us in the living room there, and then we had to excuse ourselves because he had to go out and finish chopping wood because it was coming on winter. Nimrod Workman, black lung in both lungs, was one of the people who fought to get black lung recognized as an industrial disease. But that man, that lean as a rail, hawk-featured, he could bend over double, put his arms between his legs, twine them around his ankles, put his hands flat on the floor, and lever himself up and walk on his hands like a crab. I've never seen anything like it. We're going to listen to a song here that Nimrod Workman wrote, and he's going to talk a little bit about it too.
I lived in one little town, Chatteroy. We had went out to work for 18 and 20 hours a day and use an old breast auger, drill up a hole, be drilling on the middle hole, snub the place, load up the dust, shoot the middle hole, and snuff bad iron smoke all day long, and took us along about 3 o'clock to get our last hole drilled and shot down. We had to smoke all day. I got rest of it. Give me just a little time. 42 years, it's a mighty long time to labor and toil down in a coal mine. But down in this deep hole, where them bright lights did glow, then back in that dark room, I was spading up coal. My bones they did ache me, Lord, my kneecaps got bad. Down on that hard rock, on the set of knee pad, they sent me to a city to find a new job. I went to this doctor, and I heard him say, both lungs is broke down, you spent your best day. Both lungs is broke down, you spent your best day. Go back to that coal mine, they got you this way. True, they did.
Yes, Nimrod Workman. What a voice. Voice would take the varnish off a canoe paddle. He's a marvelous human being. I want to take you to a sheep shed now. An enormous sheep shed on the county fairgrounds at Voorheesville, New York. That's the fairgrounds where they hold the Old Songs Festival. And those are the inveterate folkies, the folk music audience that goes back into the 1950s. You know, they are in the habit of singing together, those folks. Every place they've come from, mainly over the Northeast, they belong to singers' circles. Do you know what I mean? A singer's circle is where instead of sitting around consuming music, you gather together and sing it together. Meeting in a living room or meeting in a backyard when the weather's good, the folks show up with a potluck, put all the food out, and then they sit in a circle. And there's only three things that you need to do. You could either do a song, a poem, a story, or you can pass, so there's no pressure, or you can ask a request from somebody else in the circle. And you go around 2, 3, 4 times. Finally, you sit down and you share food together. Then you come back and do it again. No competition, you see, no pressure. And a whale of a good time making your own music. You know, in a mass marketing environment, a revolutionary song is any song you choose to sing yourself. So welcome to the revolution. Now, here are those folks. Almost 500 of them gathered in the enormous sheep barn, sitting on a square. A big square in the middle where the leader is, and they're doing shape note singing. That's where you know your part by the shape of the note. It's a real old, archaic Southern Mountain style of singing. But these are people from all walks of life, from garbage collectors to computer engineers, young and old. 500 voices doing shape note singing together. And I have a recording from that sheep barn. Let's listen to those folks singing Wondrous Love.
One thing that's a little different about Sacred Heart from other types of choral music for new people, there are a couple things. One is pulsing. Pulsing means that you just give it a little more with your breast. And the other thing is, it's okay to get a little excited. Okay? So let's do Wondrous Love.
of Sacred Harp. You know, there's a whole black tradition of Sacred Harp, too, and a different body of music, but done pretty much the same way. That's an antique brought forward. One of the pleasures of being in that sheep barn was standing in the middle of that square. Anybody can go in the middle of the square and kneel down, and you listen to the pressure of the whole sound. And one of the features the day that I was there were high school students who had formed a Sacred Harp, and they came and sang for everybody there. It was remarkable. Sometimes songs are a little difficult to get out. Story festers in your mind for year after year, and you know it's supposed to come out as a song, but it never quite does. It was one of those festivals that I met the Hudson River balladeer, Sarah Cleveland, from up there in Hudson Falls, across from Saratoga Springs. She sang all the old English ballads. She didn't know they were old English ballads. She just learned them in her family, and she sang them in her growing up, and she sang them when washing dishes and sang them doing the laundry and so on. Kenneth S. Goldstein, the folklorist, discovered her, and she began to go around to festivals and sing those old ballads. A tiny, tiny woman. One time I was on the bus on the way to New York City, and I was the woman next to me. We were having a conversation, and from behind me, I heard a voice say, "Is that you, Utah?" And now there was Sarah Cleveland. She was going blind and was on her way for some eye surgery in New York City. Well, they changed places, and Sarah Cleveland talked to me. I thought we were going to talk about old English ballads, but no, she talked about being married to John, a giant Mohawk Indian, a huge Mohawk Indian, who worked on the construction, worked on the high iron, had worked on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, and how she raised her family in tents along the road from one construction camp to the next, and how when they would walk together, they couldn't hold hands because his hands were too massive. She would just hold his thumb. Well, we parted. The story went on after that, but I wanted it to slide into a song, and I tried for years and years, and I couldn't do it. I had my father's old pop-up opera hat that he used to wear when he played the piano in the Catskills. I said to Bodie Wagner, fine songwriter, lives hereabouts, I said, "Bodie, I'll give you that hat," because he treasured it, "if you will turn that story into a song." And he did, and then we both forgot it until he rummaged through some old kitchen tapes he had, and he found it. And I now listen to Bodie Wagner singing the song of Sarah and John.
The old engine turned over in the cold morning twilight. It was mid-February on the edge of the night. Sarah, she said, "Wake up, John, it's time that we ride. Wake the children, it's time that we ride." Well, a boomer's life ain't easy with a family on the road, but a big and humored man like John always pull the load. John could stand an awful lot, still come up with pride, with his little lady Sarah by his side. Now up and down the eastern coast, they went from town to town. He built the city steelworks where once stood naked ground. Oh, they seldom had a bed to sleep in every night. When they did, they used to hold each other tight. Now John, he was a giant man, and Sarah being small. At night when they would lay so still, as the evening shadows fall, instead of holding hands, you see, he'd offer her his thumb to wrap her hand around till the morning comes. A boomer's life ain't easy with a family on the road, but a big and humored man like John could always pull the load. John could stand an awful lot, still come up with pride, with his little lady Sarah by his side. Now John was in an auto wreck, it almost left him dead. He could not hear or see or think, so the doctor said. When you go in to see him, ma'am, he won't know you at all. She just nodded, started down the hall. She walked into the silent room and saw her husband there. Pain that welled within her heart was more than she could bear. To see her husband paralyzed, all mindless, deaf and dumb, she said, "I'm here, John." He stuck out his thumb. Now Boomer's life ain't easy with a family on the road, but a big and humored man like John can always pull the load. And John could stand an awful lot, still come up with pride, with his little lady Sarah by his side. Yeah, love can stand an awful lot, still come up with pride, with the strength of John and Sarah on its side.
And you're listening to Loafer's Glory with your host, Utah Phillips. For a complimentary newsletter catalog from Loafer's Glory in Utah, you can write Utah at P.O. Box 1235, Nevada City, California, 95959. That's Box 1235, Nevada City, California, zip code 95959. Or you can call us toll-free at 800-989-3825. That's 800-989-DUCK. We'll return with a second portion of today's show in just a moment.